You're 8 and your parents just bought you Pokemon Leaf Green. You're having the time of your life, exploring the world, beating gyms, catching new Pokemon, and then you see it. A trainer just sent out this cool fire dog looking Pokemon and you've gotta have one. You check the nearby grass, nothing. You check the Pokedex, nothing. Keep looking around, but never find one. Next week, you're chatting with your buddies at school, and one of them shows you their team. And sure enough, there it is, a Growlithe. How'd he get one? He shows you his Pokedex, but it looks different than yours. That's when you find out that you can only get a Growlithe in Fire Red. And without a link cable to be able to trade, you're stuck dogless. That's the moment that 8-year-old me found out version exclusives, and moreover, dual releases suck. Now, dual releases aren't exclusive to Pokemon. There are plenty of other games that use this strategy. Some that emulate Pokemon's system of releasing several versions of the same game with only minor differences, and others, like The Legend of Zelda Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages, that use the dual release system to enhance the experience. In Zelda's case, by making two connected games that are almost entirely different, but connected via the story. But Pokemon is the series that brought dual releases into the mainstream, and is the only major franchise that's still successfully getting away with it. So for that reason, we're going to be looking at the Pokemon franchise to understand why releasing different versions of the same game sucks for consumers, but why companies love it. Pokemon launched in the West with two games, Pokemon Red and Blue. In most respects, these games are exactly the same, with the only major difference being that these Pokemon can exclusively be caught in the Red version, and these Pokemon can exclusively be caught in Blue version. Otherwise, the games are essentially identical. The stated reason behind having these exclusive Pokemon was that it would encourage players to trade and to generate buzz around the game. It also didn't hurt that Nintendo was trying to promote their new link cables that allowed players to connect Game Boys to be able to play with one another and trade Pokemon. These, of course, were sold separately. After the success of the first games, Nintendo and the Pokemon Company have continued dual releases for the next 9 generation of games. Each gen has had various differences on top of the exclusive Pokemon, like minor story changes, exclusive legendary Pokemon, and different gym leaders, but overall has kept the same general idea of both games being essentially identical. Now you may be thinking, if these games are essentially identical, who cares? Just pick whatever version and it doesn't matter. Why are you making a whole video whining about them? Well, that's because I would hate to see what is essentially just a monetization tactic make its way into other game franchises. Like, imagine if there were a set of Mario games that were exactly the same, but each version had exclusive power-ups and a different final boss. That would suck and people would not be happy. But some people would still end up buying both versions so that they can try out all the power-ups or have both versions for their collections. Luckily today, dual releases haven't been a major problem outside of the Pokemon series, but are so ingrained into the Pokemon franchise that it's become normalized. But just because it's now normal, doesn't mean that it's a good thing or that it should continue. If we look at it from our perspectives as consumers, there's no real benefit to having two full-price versions of essentially the same game. All that having two versions does is limit our options and cost us more money. In Pokemon specifically, it's limiting in that you're going to be missing some of the exclusive Pokemon from the other game, giving you less options for your playthrough. This is especially a problem for people who don't have anyone to trade with, or anyone who's playing an older game that doesn't have an active community. Also, even if you do have friends to trade with, if you want to get a Pokemon not in your game, you have to buy accessories or pay for an online subscription to even be able to trade. And in the worst case, dual releases are pushing some people to buy both versions. The people who are going to end up buying both versions are some of Pokemon's biggest and most passionate fans. This can even result in people buying an extra console so they can trade between them. Now, with all these negatives for consumers, you'd expect there to be some type of reasoning for it, or benefit, but there really isn't. I'd like you to think of a time where your experience was better because you weren't physically able to catch a Pokemon in your version of a game. I've certainly never met anyone who's thought that. It's abundantly clear to me that the only reason for Nintendo and the Pokemon Company to continue with dual releases isn't just to get players to interact more. It's a way to sell more peripherals, switch online memberships, and to sell the same game more than once. The worst part of the system, in my eyes, is that Nintendo's taking advantage of their biggest fans, some of whom are children, not seeing these people as the reason for Pokemon's overwhelming success, but as an ATM machine. Now, let's quickly look at a few practical examples of how the games could have easily been made a single release. Even if we concede that the first generation of games' reason for having two versions wasn't just to sell more link cables and was actually to get players to interact with each other, the dual release system is irrelevant in every other game. In the Gen 2 games, Gold and Silver, the only real differences between them are the exclusive Pokemon and what legendary you get first. If they removed the version exclusives and made what legendary you capture first a choice, they would have just made a better game where the player has more agency over how they play. After Gen 2, they doubled down on dual releases and removed the ability to get the other box legendary from the game. Since no one's going to be trading their box art legendary, they essentially made it impossible to get the other one unless you buy both versions. Now, let's take a look at the most recent releases, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. They again have different exclusive Pokemon and different exclusive legendaries. This set of games also has exclusive school colors and Pokemon professors. And even with these differences, combining the games would again just make for a better experience overall. First off, you do away with the version exclusive Pokemon and merge the games by letting you pick your school colors. You could pick what school to attend at the start, or just make the colors an option you can change on the fly. Also, give the player the option as to what legendary they pick. And finally, combine the themes of the past and future Pokemon to make the endgame Zero area feel even more special. Normally, you're limited to all the past or future versions of Pokemon, depending on your version of the game. But by combining them, it would make for a cool dynamic of past and future colliding. Also, for the final fight, where you're either fighting a team full of all past or all future Pokemon, depending on what version you buy, combining the teams together and using the strongest past and future Pokemon would make for an even more exciting and challenging final fight. Now, for those that think that doing away with dual releases would kill player interaction, I say that there's already a ton, and in my opinion better, reasons for players to interact and play together. Even without version exclusives, you can connect to battle with friends or climb the rank ladder. Also, if trading's really your thing, the fossils, starter Pokemon, and trade evolutions already in the game give you an even better reason to trade with other players, but also gives you the choice as to what you want to use in your playthrough. Pokemon's method of dual releases is completely unnecessary and leaves consumers with a worse experience. It wasn't born out of a want to make the games better. It was and is the result of corporate greed. Now listen, I love Pokemon as much as the next guy, and this video isn't meant to be an attack on the games. I just want to point out a problem I see where a company's taking advantage of players, and that I hope can eventually change. I'd also hate to see this monetization tactic be used more frequently by other franchises. Hopefully this serves as a warning to watch out for this anti-consumer way of monetizing, and to push back against companies who try and use dual releases as an easy way to make an extra buck. Thanks for watching.